This is Spirit Zone.
Blame for the failure of a life. Don't blame anybody. Nobody is entitled to your manifestation. Don't blame any system. That condition you are in that you fail, there are many people who were in that same condition and excel. If you want to blame anything in your life, blame your imagination. Because the outcome of your life is a product of your progressive imagination. People's outcome are a manifestation of their imagination. I'm telling you why people don't manifest. Even after preparing for destiny and for ministry, preparing for business, preparing for leadership, they still don't manifest. Because their imagination will insist they don't. There was a time I started arguing with myself. I said, come on. Young ministers in the West, they give their hearts to Christ. 2 years, they are already international missionaries. Traveling from one nation to another. They start up ministries that are doing well. And some of them, you hear their testimony. And they tell you, 3 years ago, the Lord encountered me and it's been glorious. And I see ministers in Nigeria and in Africa. After 15 years, they have started process. I say, why don't our own process end? It's only when somebody is 38 years old that is waking up to start destiny. You see a 40-year-old person. At 35, people are retiring. Meanwhile, in Africa, people are starting at 40. I said, what is going on? I now discovered our mentality is our greatest limitation. I'm not talking against process, but nobody say process must be 15 years. Because that thing you are doing that you are calling 15 years process, somebody else went through that process in 2 years. Your process may complete, but your imagination may keep you there. And it is so bad that it's a systemic thing. When you rise up to fulfill your destiny, everybody heaps at you and says, shut down, you are ambitious. Ambitious? Have you looked around the world? Sometimes you go for a conference where professors from Nigeria, NUC sponsors them, and you see every delegate has white beard. They have been professors and they have taught in the university for 32 years. When they walk like this from Nigeria and they enter the conference, they will now meet 23-year-old boys. Hello, how you doing? He's representing United States of America. Meanwhile, here is Dean of Studies. As we go, he's Dean of Studies. And they will hold their voice and walk. 70-year-old men, they are the ones that represent Africa. But when you meet in the same conference, sometimes the speaker is 24 years old. He will come and they'll say, this is a doctor of nuclear physics. And he's presenting a paper. And these people will see that and still come back here. Because the imagination is limited. They won't allow anybody go anywhere. That's why witchcraft is one of the ingredients of the gospel of Africa. Because our imagination has limited us. Because it took you 60 years to achieve it does not mean everybody should do it in 60 years. Because it took you 15 years to do it does not mean everybody must do it in 15 years. Allow people move at the pace that God has allocated to them. Imagination can become a grave. This is why you must spend time to make sure you think right. Somebody wrote a book. He said, think and grow rich. He didn't say walk and grow rich. So true. Think. When a Nigerian child is going to school, he's laboring to have degrees so that he will have a good job. So we train to become servants. But the Western world trained to become entrepreneurs and leaders. You find somebody has a degree. He wants 2 masters and 1 PhD. The reason is to give him more job prospect. He can't think of owning anything. Because the imagination will not allow the person. He made the first class. Why is he celebrating? It's not because of the knowledge. He's celebrating because when he comes with a first class, he will have opportunity to get the job. So we labor to become servants. Our imagination will never allow us to think like leaders. And this is why all the fasting, the prayers, the prophecies, yet we go nowhere. Because the imagination has become a grave. You become what you think. You are a product of your imaginations. In Jeremiah 9 verse 14, he said, concerning the people, he said they have walked after the imagination of their own heart. They have walked after the imagination of their own heart. In fact, in Jeremiah 7:23 and 24, God said, they disobeyed my word and choose to walk after their imaginations. This is why I told you, for you to manifest, you must internalize the word of God until the word of God becomes your contemplation. If the word of God is not the pictorial expression of your mind, you will never become what God said. God can say something, you can do the other. If your imagination is at variance with the word of God, you will do your imagination, not the word of God. No matter how you fear God. Have you not seen many people who are struggling with sin? They don't want to sin anymore, but their imagination is full of immorality. So even though they want to serve God because they know what God said, they have not inundated their minds with the word of God. So they keep struggling because they will end up doing their imagination if their imagination is put side by side with the word of God. But if your imagination aligns with the word of God, you become the manifestation of the word of God. This is why many prepare, but they never manifest. I have traveled around this country by the mercies of God. I have seen men with terrible dimensions of the miraculous. Terrible dimension. Sometimes you find them, they are in one small village close to a rock or a mountain, and they are raising the dead there, casting out demons. And then when you ask them, they say, no, John the Baptist was in the wilderness. John the Baptist, that they must be here. They will change the world. If God says to be, see the problem now. If God says to be there, that's fine. But if God doesn't say so, sir, think the globe. Think global. You will make more impact for Jesus when you are global. God is not against you going global. And these people are raising the dead there. Every day they meet you, they say, brother, the ministry of the Lord is in need. Why will you not remain in need if you are in the forest? Because your partners will be lions and tigers. And I'm not speaking that if God says be there, be there. You can turn that place to a heaven. Don't get me wrong, right? John was in the wilderness. The whole Jerusalem and Judea went to him. But if God didn't tell you to be there, be strategic. Think the word, and you pitch your tent where you can have more impact. It's not ambition. I told you the difference between ambition and impact. Impact is to glorify God and to improve others. Ambition is to glorify self and to improve self. They are two different.